This
areas,
conference will now be recorded.
nearby, and generally a little less space to work. I'd like to introduce our presenters here this morning. After they are finished their formal remarks, we will do a bit of a Q&A, both with some questions that we have for them, as well as those that you put in the chat feature. Dan Hill is the president of Hilson Homes. Hilson Homes have been members of the association since 2001. They are active in both renovations and new home construction in established areas. Dan is a member of the association's Intercity Committee, and Hilson Homes is also a Renomark member. Samir Gaidar is president of Millennium Plus Homes. Millennium Plus Homes, or MP Homes, specializes in multifamily homes within the inner city. Millennium Plus Homes has been a member for 18 years. Barry Johnson is co-owner of Dependable Renovations along with his wife Lisa. Dependable Renovations also works in new home construction within the inner city and estate products and has been a member since 2016. I'm going to ask each of you now to take some time to tell us a little bit about your business, including the types of jobs you've been most recently working on, and to paint a picture, so to speak, for the audience as to the types of work you've been doing. Then perhaps you can share your approach and experience with the COVID-19 situation and what you have and have not put in place, and if and how it's affecting your operations. So Barry, I would like you to begin, and as we do here, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you so you can share your screen. So thank you, Barry, for joining us, and you should, oh, I have to stop sharing my screen. Sorry, Barry, let me just have a sec. Barry, you should now have control.
All right.
Good morning, Barry.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to start with, it truly is an honor to be asked to be a part of this panel today, to be speaking about this COVID situation and how it's affecting every one of us in the city and the environment that we actually are dealing with. I'm just going to share my screen and open up our website. It truly is an honor to be here. It's caused a lot of reflection to just to think about really where we are today and what we're doing as an industry. I know everyone has a perspective on their own business, and we're all trying to survive here. Alberta was in a very difficult position before any of this happened, and you know, I'm not saying anything we don't know, but I think it's important to recognize that, and it's a real achievement, I think, for everyone who is still able to be in business today. It has been absolutely astounding to see the way things have unfolded, and literally, you know, overnight, our world has changed now forever, and we've been given the ability to, as I said, still be here, to still be in business. A bit about our business. My wife and I met in the industry probably almost 20 years ago now, and we started our business just about 8 years ago. And we've been doing renovations. We started with really small projects, and we've worked our way up to you know, just about the $1 million mark projects and everything in between. We've been really blessed to have people trust us with their homes to come in and transform it according to, you know, their needs and requirements for their house. Our specialty is renovations. It has been from the beginning, and as long as we're in business, I think it will be. One of the interesting things that we have been doing over the last 2 years is additions to existing properties, but for a very specific purpose, so that it can be an extended family care situation. So in-laws can move in, and you know, the family can be right there to care for them, to look after them, and it's really neat to see that people are planning that now. And I think that that will probably become more apparent in the environment that we are entering into with what we've seen, you know, in the home care facilities. Not that it's a bad thing, it's just a situation, the way it's unfolded. And you know, the longer that we can stay in our homes, the better we are, the healthier we'll remain. So we've had the opportunity to do some really neat additions to houses. We specialize in, you know, basically everything residential, whether it's interior or exterior. With our website, what we did as we entered into this COVID situation, we felt it important to make sure that anyone that would be looking into a renovation that would find us on the internet would see that we are actually we're involved with it. We understand what's happening, and you know, having current projects on the go, it's important to make sure that we're managing things according to the legislation, the mandates of Alberta Health Services, and implementing them as best as possible on site. That being said, the mandates were very fluid initially, and I think as we go forward, as the relaxations begin to expose themselves, as the government relaxes things for us, I think it's going to be also quite a fluid situation. And it's something that we need to adapt to. We can't just pretend that everything is business as usual. One of the biggest challenges that we've had is having a home office with kids, which I'm sure every business out there has encountered. Having children at home is a very difficult thing. Once upon a time, it was, I would think, almost taboo perception to have a child walk in or feel like your children are interrupting you with noise in the background. But now that's becoming the normal. Everyone is encountering that. Everyone understands that. Having the home business is something that we've had from the beginning. We've never had a storefront, and we just believe it's a very good way to do business. But now it's sort of the normal thing. What we have done on our website here, just a quick going back to what we've done, is we've set up an announcement about COVID just to talk about it, and you know, just to talk about the elephant in the room, so to speak. Not pretend that it's not there, but just to embrace it and understand that it's something that we are all encountering. It's not exclusive to anyone. And as we go forward, we want to make sure that everyone understands sort of our perception on where we stand with it. We're looking every day to make sure that we're on top of what the government is mandating as things evolve, as we mentioned. All of our client meetings are being conducted via Zoom or GoToMeetings. The new normal for everyone, I'm sure. Our administrative work is being performed remotely. We don't have people in our office at home anymore. It's all remote, which is incredible. On site, we have a maximum of 5 workers at any time. We're trying very diligently to be careful on sites. We actually had a situation on one of our projects in an established area where a neighbor felt like there was too many people there, and we had a visit from bylaw. And you know, we were quite pleased to note that the bylaw officer said, yes, you know, everything is fine, but you do need to be careful. And so that was a little reassuring for us in this uncertain time. But we do allow a maximum of 5 workers on site at any time, and encourage the social distancing, you know, 2 meters between everyone. And if anyone is sick, we definitely do not want them on site at all. They will be dismissed immediately. Regular hand sanitization is required. We have sanitizer on site inside the job site, as well as in the porta potties. Any subcontractors, like I said, if they have any form of sickness, illness, they're asked to leave. And one of the interesting things with that is, once upon a time, I think people could have been offended by that, but I think that now everyone is aware and everyone has a perception that nobody really wants to put anybody at risk. And that's, I think, one of the interesting things that's come about with this whole COVID thing. The human nature, I think, has caused a real awareness for everyone's frailties in what we do and how we interact with society, and how important it is to make sure that it's not just us we're worried about. Once upon a time, that really was probably the biggest driver, but now it's everyone else. In terms of dealing with our job sites, we haven't really changed a lot of our process. we have been very diligent from the beginning to seal off existing lived-in space when a homeowner lives in their house. And so I think that we have just been able to maybe polish our skills with that. We use poly zipper walls, and we cover furnace vents. We do really strong dust mitigation when we do a renovation in a house. And so that, I think, has played really well into what we do for existing jobs. There's just maybe a little bit more requirement for maintenance to those areas where we have separation in the building. And aside from the actual separation of people, the social distancing requirements on site, there hasn't really been a lot of change for what we do. We do have projects on the go, and there's other projects that we've been in design with. And it's been very interesting because I have noticed as we've entered into this whole COVID situation, our phone has started to ring more. We've had more phone calls for people looking to inquire about changing the space they live in. And I think the one thing that I've really noticed with this, and maybe it would just be me speaking personally, but how important our own individual home space is, whether we own it or whether we rent it, but just how important that personal space really is for every single person here. When we're told that there's a pandemic and we need a safe place to go, that's our go-to. And I think it's really shone a light on everyone's space and how we can make do with the space we have. We don't necessarily need to build new, but how we can actually utilize the space that we have maybe in a better way, maybe in a more practical way for our family's life. Maybe it's having a home business, maybe it's just having a sacred place that you can have to unwind, or anything in between. But just how important it is to have our own sanctuary, our own place to go to, and how we can create better use of the existing space. I think that personally, being in the industry day in, day out, that's what we do. I almost began to take that for granted, that our own space it's just our own space, and we can easily just get another one and transform it. But when everything shuts down and we don't have that luxury to just go get another space, how important is it to really look around and see what we can do differently with what it is we actually have? That has, I think, changed a little bit of my thinking towards the industry and renovations in general. But I do believe that human interaction has changed forever. Human interaction in terms of dealing with a customer on the initial visit, that has now gone to Zoom meetings. We've had phone conversations and Zoom meetings. We're no longer going to customers' houses and shaking their hands, which was once, if you didn't shake someone's hand, you were actually kind of frowned upon. Now we have to look at each other in the eyes via the new platforms, whatever they are, the virtual meetings. And all of the front end of our business has actually shifted to that. We do not any longer do any home meetings. There's a few clients that have said they're comfortable with it, and we will if we can actually do the social distancing. And I think for the most part, it's just important to make sure that we're operating within the parameters of what the Alberta Health Services is mandating. Yeah, it's one other thing that's really sort of jumped out at me, us, I guess, in this time is the importance of having a safety program. And whether it's C Corps rated or whether it's a core certification, either one of those endorsements, I believe they're good. But it's important to make sure that as a company, you have something in place so you know what's going to happen when something happens, such as this, having a regulation in place to say that, best practices, you have them written down and everyone understands what they are, so you can actually move forward as a team and not sort of scattered. Yeah, so thoughtful planning, sort of on the front end, using the new platforms, making sure that we're social distancing properly, and just realizing the importance of the safety program and really how important it is to make sure that everyone is looked after. It's not just about the homeowner. It's not just about our company. It's about our sub-trades and the suppliers and everyone that we'll encounter along the way. I think that every one of us has a bit of a new perspective on life. Things have changed, I think, forever from the way that we once knew them. So yeah, our business is business as usual. We have a fair bit of work on the go. We're not interested in a year of growth per se. I think what we're interested in as we go forward is being a lot more thoughtful on every single job that we do. We're not interested to grow our business to be bigger and take on a lot more jobs, but we want to be a lot more thoughtful and a lot more diligent about every single job that we do, so that we can maintain, the Alberta Health regulations, the new mandate that's come out. Make sure that everyone is safe. Make sure that everyone is looked after, and not be stretched so thin that we don't understand where we are as a business in terms of the jobs that we're dealing with. So I think thoughtful planning is probably the key to what I have to offer, from the beginning, making sure that everything is planned out well for a family space or an individual space with the existing, building they're living in, to implementing, social distancing and making sure that everyone is safe as we do the work, and then, follow-up stuff, making sure that everything is looked after, and just the importance of, the home sanctuary, making sure that we, as a team, recognize that it's someone's sacred space and how important it is to them for whatever that purpose is. And I think that is about it for us.
Barry, thanks very much for those remarks. Much appreciated for you sharing what you and your team are doing at Dependable Renovation. So thanks for that so much. I'm gonna grab the helm from you and hand it off to our next presenter from Millennium Plus Homes, Shamir Gaydar. So Shamir, hopefully you're standing by. You now have control, and if you'd like to share your screen, we'd be delighted to hear from you, and welcome.
Perfect, thank you. My name's Shamir, president of Millennium Plus Homes. Today, you're hearing a lot of stuff, and you'll hear different aspects of what people are doing. The one thing that I can say is the new normal is there is no normal. And we just kind of have to play around with that and realize that everything changes on a day-to-day basis. As things ease, as things go back, we have to be able to adapt. And I think that's one of the biggest things that all of us can take away from this conversation is adapting to what's changing. Not only that, a lot of people are looking at some of the changes in technology. A lot of that technology has been there for years, and a lot of us have been very reluctant in touching that. And we prefer face-to-face interactions, this and that. Now the technology, if it's used in the correct way, will be a lot more efficient for us. So there can be a positive coming for that. I know I have site inspections, or someone will call me from a site and have an issue with something. Sometimes I would jump in my car, just get out for a few minutes, go by, take a look, make comments on it. Now it's like, why don't we use some of this technology? Let's FaceTime, let's WhatsApp, let's Zoom call. Let me see what you're doing. Send me pictures. Using an iPad with the pencil to draw back, saying, I want this done this way here. Being able to adapt and change those things, make it a lot quicker. Because right now, with everything that's going on and with all the regulations, all of us are probably facing slower times on sites, things taking a lot longer than they used to, trying to respect the social distancing. The other thing in the inner city that's a lot more different than in the greenfield aspect is when you're in a greenfield aspect, there's new homes everywhere. Everyone's moving into a new neighborhood. In the inner city, we're working in their neighborhood. It's just kind of the perception of a lot of the neighbors. So the neighbors are a lot more nosier, a lot more involved in what's going on. I ironically had a call the other day from a neighbor saying, listen, we are seeing homeless people going to your porta potty. And, complaining about that, saying, well, we don't know what they're doing. We're afraid they're going to spread COVID, this, that. And trying to deal with those different aspects is a lot more challenging than it used to be, where people would just ignore that. Now you have people home all the time watching that stuff there. On sites there, one of the things that we've done, and I'm going to share this right now. Start broadcast. On every one of our sites, we have gone to the Alberta, the Alberta.ca website, and you'll see they have all these posters here preventing, talk about physical distancing, you know, it talks about how to stop the spread. These are really important posters in the sense where we are actually printing them out, putting them up on site on the doors or the fences. All it does, it's like the sound, the sound walls on Crowchild Trail. You know, they only reduce 10% of the noise, but they reduce 90% of the complaints. This here is a way for us to show our neighbors that we are actually participating properly and responsibly in the industry. Because that's the last thing we need, is to be looking like we are not adhering to social distancing and causing those issues. So that's one option there. Another thing is there's another website here that you'll find again on Alberta Health website. It talks about all these other signs, and these are all downloadable, printable, so easy to put up. Throw them in a plastic, plastic protector sheet and drop it on your sites, and makes it really good. Just taping them to the door or windows or whichever way there. The other thing that we are doing is we've made up our own COVID form here, and just using that, because some people are very tech savvy and some aren't, and trying to get people to adapt to certain aspects can be easy or not. But we'll email this to them. They can fill it electronically, or they can send it off to us. And it's just asking the simple questions. Now, we've switched our lock boxes to the master lock boxes, and we find them actually really neat because there is no set code. Everything's from a smartphone. And if they do not send off, any of our trades do not send off these forms, they do not get a code to get in. So we can actually control that and make sure things are going, properly. So by 7:30 in the morning, there's probably around 30 requests for codes, and people are filling out these forms, sending it off to us, and they'll get a code right back for which unit they need to get into. Switch back. Okay, so that's in that aspect there. Now, one of the biggest things that I'm looking at right now is scheduling. You know, we used to be able to have a couple trades on site, maybe 3-4 different trades on site, working in close parameters to each other, really not jumping over each other, but working in close parameters. Now, scheduling has become imperative, and we have talked to all of our sites, suppliers, all of our trades, talking to them about, you're given a day, you need to be there that day. And making sure they show up at certain days it can be a challenge at times, but it's very important. For example, I had a supplier yesterday who was supposed to go template something and got misplaced, and they asked me, well, okay, well, it didn't work today, I'm going to be there tomorrow. It's like, if you are going tomorrow, there's other people in the site, in that unit, there's no way to maintain social distancing, so I'm going to have to ask you to go after 5 p.m. Ironically, they found someone to come in and get that done that same day, but still, the key behinding is scheduling, and telling people, you know, this is not only for your safety, but it's for everyone's safety in that aspect there. Going to my notes here. The other thing, again, we talked about with some of the clients, you know, going through some of their homes, they want to take walkthroughs, doing that. We can schedule a walkthrough when no one else is in there. The other option is we are now regularly taking a lot more videos and sending them to the clients, giving them links so they can see their home going in the process. All of our show homes actually been doing it for years, but we have virtual tours on our show homes, trying to get people in there doing that. In our show homes, we've actually posted in there that any of our sites, show home visits will be time specific. So you will, appointment, you'll have to come in, book an appointment, do that. We actually provide hand sanitizer. On the Build's website, I'm sure and there's some amazing resources on Build's website right there about COVID. You can find out there's a distillery we picked up from there, Burwood Distilleries. So we've picked up liters and liters of hand sanitizer, and on Amazon, we ordered little bottles. They'll have 5 ml bottles, and we actually give them to the clients before they come in. They're set aside for them to sanitize as they go through, before and after. That way we can try to avoid any contact whatsoever there. Lastly, I'll put in there is talking about service calls. You know, for the first little while, and again, going back to adapting, a lot of the service calls, we were saying that unless it was imperative, we will not be coming in and doing any service calls until then. The key behind this is not going away. It's going to be like this for a while, and we're going to have to maintain the social distancing and the respect in people's homes, but we can't neglect our service calls because they can just add up and cause a lot of issues there, and we want to mitigate any issues that come up. So one of the things that we've done is with the service calls, our trades will call the homeowner when they're there outside their house. The homeowner is required to go upstairs, stay away from that, from our employee. If it's upstairs, go downstairs, just, on the opposite level of there. Our service calls, the individuals are wearing masks and gloves and going in. We have also given the option if they would like to be FaceTime during the service call. That way they can see what's going on. They're involved in that, because let's face it, we have a lot of homeowners who like to look over our shoulders and ask questions and do that. But during the FaceTime, they can see that and watch and go through those calls there. After that, the client or the serviceman will leave, close the door behind them, and go from there. This way we can maintain the social distancing, but allow the homeowner to have those services. Some are not worried, some are extremely worried, but a lot of them will be in their hands to choose from there. All right, well, thank you very much for your time there.
Thank you very much for that, Shamir. Just before we pass the microphone, if you will, over to our last speaker, just remind everyone that if you have questions for our speakers, if you could just start to fill up the chat feature. I have some I'm going to be asking the speakers at the end, but if you would be so kind as to also include any questions you have in the chat feature, that would be great. With that, I'm going to pass that great presentation. Thank you once again, Shamir. I'm going to pass it over to Dan Hill of Hilson Homes. Thank you very much for joining us this morning again, Dan, and welcome. And I see you already have your presentation up and going, so please proceed. Just one thing you're going to have to do, Dan, is you're going to have to unmute your mic.
Gotcha. Thank you, Brian. Glad to be here. Not really a whole lot else to say, different than Shamir and Barry have already touched on. So obviously not going to take a whole lot of time here, maybe hit some highlights, but yeah, I think the biggest thing for us, or maybe what this has shown us, is that being organized, having systems in place has really enabled us to, for the most part, continue on business as usual, other than a few of the new protocols that we've put in place. We've been members of C-Corps for quite a while, so those systems have certainly helped with organizing, managing things on site. And we've just basically tweaked that a little bit to accommodate these new protocols. And a lot of what we've used is just same thing, print materials through OH&S, the Alberta government, things like that. We did create our own site forms, same as Shamir alluded to there. And basically just, having people, I guess, be aware of, know what they need to be doing on the site. We're relying obviously heavily on our project managers to implement and maintain these things and monitor them on site. We're using a sign-in sheet, basically just kind of highlighting those things that people should be aware of. If they're having any symptoms, things like that, then obviously they need to be aware of that, and we need to be aware of that. So we're just using those types of forms to kind of control that and to keep track of it. As far as I guess impacts on our business, obviously scheduling is important and has become more important, as Shamir said. We're limiting people, generally one trade on any given floor in a home that we're working on, either interior or exterior. So 2 or 3 at a time, maybe. some of them have expressed that they're more sensitive than others about these things. So obviously we're trying to accommodate that. But yeah, it's about being flexible too. You need to take everybody's needs and concerns into account there. So we're trying to do that as much as we can. Yeah, and I guess basically we're just, as I said, we're taking these new things and kind of melding them into what we're already doing. So, you know, for example, through CCOR, our FLHA, or field level hazard assessments, we're basically just treating COVID like any other hazard. We're identifying what the risks are, how it can be controlled or mitigated, and just treating it as such. As far as I guess on the other end of things, I mean, that's construction. As far as planning, project planning, and those sorts of things on the pre-construction end, yeah, I mean, we're obviously using some of the technologies that are out there. We're doing Zoom meetings and that sort of thing to help people through the selection process, to communicate with them that way. Some of the trades and vendors still have showrooms open, but on appointment only basis. So we're also utilizing that as well. But yeah, I guess generally speaking, obviously we're being aware of these things that we need to be, but we're trying to also continue business so that everybody can be out there making a living and not necessarily being dependent on the government. So I think that's important in all of this as well. So not much else from me.
Thanks very much, Dan. Appreciate your remarks and sharing your experiences, as well as the processes that you've put in place. We have a couple of questions in the chat room, and I have some questions, but why don't we turn to the ones in the chat area first, and I'll just put just before we do that, if you just give me half a sec, I can put that wonderful little screen up that the Build folks have made for us. Here. And so just back to the chat room here real quick. I think this one, the first question is from Len and it's directed to Barry, but I think, Dan, it's for both you and Barry, so I'll give you both a crack at it. And Shamir, you can talk a little bit about it, and you alluded to it in your presentation. It says for Barry, we'll give you first start. Are you working in homeowner occupied homes? If so, how do you manage the homeowner presence near the renovation site? You talked a little bit about that in your presentation, but if you can elaborate on it, and then Dan, if you can just chime in after that. So Barry, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, specifically homeowner occupied homes. It's one of the most challenging environments to work in to do renovation, but as I mentioned, we do extensive dust mitigation. What that means specifically is we will actually seal the floor and the walls and the ceiling with poly, 6 mil poly, and we install a zipper door, and most times we'll do a single wall with a zip wall, it's called, and it's just extension poles that, you know, are friction fit from the ceiling to the floor, but with 6 mil poly, and we usually make it fairly robust. We'll tape that poly to those poles. We'll tape it, as I mentioned, to the ceiling, to the walls, and to the floor as well, so that it's very sealed. And in some cases, when we need to, we'll actually do a double wall. We'll do an airspace between walls so that we get a really good insulation area or isolation area. But currently, we have one project underway that we had started before this happened, and we had that very thing in place. We have a poly wall that's completely sealed off, short of a zipper door, but the entire area that the homeowner lives in is separate from the area that we're working in. And it's basically in the stairwell. We're doing an addition on a house. So there's an area in the basement the customer lives in, and the area upstairs that the customer needs to access as well. So the reason I'm saying this is they're actually entering through the workspace. They have to go up and down the stairs. So every day we're making sure it's clean and the customer is in, we're in very close communication with the customer to make sure that when they need access, we get out of the way. We make sure that they have the space when they need it. So hopefully that explains a bit about it. We just make sure that we have really good separation with 6 mil poly.
Thanks, Barry. Dan, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, much the same story. We've actually been fortunate. The two major renovations we have on the go right now, the homeowners are not there. However, we are meeting with them on site. So obviously we're adhering to the distancing measures when we do that. But yeah, honestly, for the most part, I think even if we had people living in the homes that we're working on, same as Barry mentioned, I mean, we've got the systems in place to kind of accommodate what we need anyways. So I'm not sure we would really be changing much.
Thanks, Dan. The next question maybe is more, it's a similar sort of question, but maybe Shamir, I'm going to toss it over to you. And you alluded to it a bit in your presentation about pre-possession and possession walkthroughs and orientations. Can you just share what MP Homes is doing on that front, Shamir? And then maybe I'll go with Dan and Barry on any other comments they would like to add on that question.
So during our pre-possession walkthroughs, can everyone hear me all right? During our pre-possession walkthroughs, what we are doing right now is we are actually, we used to basically meet with the client, walk them through, give them through details, explain everything to them. Now, yes, you can adhere to social distancing in a home of the 2 meters, but the longer you're there, the more chances of any issues coming up. So what we've done is we started pre-recording a walkthrough. So, basically walking through the whole home, explaining things to them, giving them a video, and we actually are enjoying that more. And I don't think we'll ever go back to the opposite way, because it's something the client can keep and watch over and over, and actually makes less questions for us in the end. So after recording that video, what we can do is we will allow them to walk through and discuss things with them. Now that can basically reduce the the walkthrough time by around 80%. So you're only doing a 20% walkthrough, and this is of course being given to them prior to them doing their inspection walkthrough. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Shamir. Dan, do you want to just give us some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, just a quick comment on that. For the most part, we actually did just turn over a home 2 Fridays ago here. So we did go through that process. Generally speaking, with our larger custom homes, we're having either a weekly or bi-weekly meeting on site with the homeowners. So when it comes time for us to turn the house over, there really isn't a whole lot to cover. I mean, other than walking them through the home, doing the inspection, I guess, explaining systems to them, operation of the home, those sorts of things, which, yeah, I really like Shamir's idea there, actually doing a video beforehand. Some of those things about the home systems and that kind of thing would be easy enough to do that way, and certainly great for their records. But yeah, it went pretty seamlessly, didn't have too many issues there. The one advantage to that was the new home warranty 5-foot distance for looking at paint touch-ups. Everybody knows the 5-foot distance now, so that's great. We just told them the social distance from the wall.
Thanks, Dan. Barry, any other comments?
I would say that makes it quite real. The ability to identify paint deficiencies. I really like that. I have to say that I have a real good takeaway here, the video walkthrough. I love that, Shamir. To see an 80% reduction in time and potential conversation about things that are avoidable. I really like that. That being said, with our projects, we definitely have a close communication with the homeowner. And as things progress, when it comes time to actually turn the project over to the homeowner, we have been in close enough communication. There's very few things to really walk through and discuss. And it's a real interesting way to do it, because I do come from the new home side, where once upon a time it was only one discussion at the end, and customers almost felt desperate to make sure that they found everything because they were afraid that they wouldn't, see things addressed in terms of warranty and service. But yeah, I think the close communication with the homeowners, that hasn't changed with us. We text a lot, and sometimes there's a FaceTime call. We'll talk about something on site, but I do like the documentation of the video. That's certainly a good takeaway for me today. So thank you, Shamir.
Thanks for that, Barry. For all of you, and maybe I'll start in with you, Dan, on this one. Many businesses have been affected by the public health emergency surrounding COVID-19. Maybe you could just talk about how it has impacted your business and some of the things that you might suggest that will be challenges going forward, but actually pluses in lessons learned from the experience you're having now.
Yeah, that's a good question. As I alluded to before, I mean, because we've got quite extensive systems in place already, it actually made dealing with this quite easy for us. A lot of it obviously is education, both for our partners, trades and vendors and things like that, as well as clients. So it's really just a matter of kind of explaining to them how our business is fitting into the new situation, how we're accommodating it, and those sorts of things. But as Shamir already mentioned, I mean, flexibility is key, which we've always been as well. A smaller company, it's easy to adapt and change to things that are going on. So I think that's key, is just to be flexible and be organized. With those two things in place, it's pretty easy to deal with these kind of things.
Thanks, Dan. Barry, do you want to just chime in on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that I talked about it earlier, and just how important our own individual spaces are, and how I think that business as usual, the way that we knew it, is gone forever. And I believe the home office, the remote operation of just about everything, is going to be the new normal. And just being able to adapt with that, I believe somebody mentioned it earlier in their presentation about how we kind of shied away from this technology, but I mean, it's been there, and it's now forced everyone to jump up on some type of platform and figure it out. And I think that that's a tremendous change that's kind of come out of it. For our business specifically, we decided to shrink back slightly in terms of the number of jobs that we were doing before all of the COVID thing happened, and just be a little more thoughtful with each one that we are doing. And I think that has really helped us in this situation, because we don't have a site manager running our projects for us. Now it's Lisa and myself completely engaged with every project. So we understand where we are minute by minute, day to day, with every single project. So that in itself has been really helpful for us in this situation, I think.
Thanks, Barry. Shamir, what would you have to say in terms of how COVID-19 has been a boon and a challenge for your business?
Well, our new company motto is basically do more with less. And we have to figure out how to keep in this type of market where everything is, we have to give more to the customer with the ability to only do less with the customer directly there. So it's been a lot of different challenges, and as I mentioned, adapting every day is the key. There's multiple ways. Technology is changing, ideas are changing, and what we knew and what is going on are two different things. And keeping in the mindset that new is okay, like trying different things, trying different ways. You'll have positives, you'll have negatives come out of it, but just being able to try those different things. There's never been a more acceptable time at doing that. And even failing at that, you could try again, and nobody will, you're not going to get any negative feedback on that, because everyone understands we're all trying different aspects. So the ability to adapt your business to the new changes is actually the easiest time it'll ever be. You know, so that's kind of where we're standing on that and keep trying to adapt.
Thanks, Shamir. Shamir, maybe if I can kick this next question back to you to start the answers on. I'm aware directly, having seen you in action, with how you've implemented technology in your products. And you've also talked about how you've implemented technology in your customer interface. All of you have talked about that to some degree. There are some in this world who are not quite the great technology adopters that others might be. And how do you deal with those who are a little bit challenged in connecting online, or are a little bit gun shy, if I can put it that way, in terms of adopting technology, in terms of your customers and perhaps those that you have to work with to deliver your product? Shamir, do you want to take the first crack at that?
Sure. The key is a lot of those people, we actually have a client, something like that right now, where they do not have much technology. Now, when we first started the process with them of building their home, they were very reluctant and basically refused it. And now with the social distancing, they've become a lot more open to it, which is great. However, they didn't have the exact technologies. Now, we figured out we are going to have to be able to adapt with them a lot more. So what we did is we actually picked up an iPad for them, and we have lent it to them during the process. Now, granted, they're committed, so we know they're buying, so we're okay with that. It's an investment. We will use it again like that. But in that iPad, we've fully set it up with the systems that we need. So it's got its own FaceTime, so we can FaceTime at certain times. It's got its own aspects, its own email in there if we have to. That's fully locked towards us. We even went as far as setting up like parental controls on there, so that way they cannot delete apps, do things that will cause issues there. It's strictly for the usage of the building process. And that's how we've gotten people to work with us on that, is basically kind of indirectly forcing them to take on that stuff.
Thanks, Shamir. Your comment there kind of reminded me of working with my father-in-law and making sure his printer connected, so parental controls for the parents.
Yeah, there you go.
A piece that came out of this morning. Barry, maybe I can give you a crack at that. You talked a lot about how you use meetings and the like. Have you had any experience with customers that are a little bit technologically challenged?
You know, with our business, I don't think we have encountered it yet. With the prior company that we worked with, we definitely did. And it's exactly what Shamir just said, an iPad. And we used the iPads for our cloud-based software, the management system that we had for clients. And there were clients that we needed to set the iPad up with the parental controls so that it was actually exclusive for our purposes, and the customers actually got onto it really well. We did the same thing for my mother actually about 5 years ago as well. She wasn't technologically advanced at all, but we were able to get her an iPad and get her to relax a little bit and show her FaceTime, and it's not going to hurt them. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is for people to realize that they're not going to break it and it's not going to hurt them. It's just a new way, and it's just the way it is. Absolutely.
Thanks. Very interesting how those family experiences translate into business. Dan, do you have anything to add on that front?
No, not much. We, for the most part, we've been pretty fortunate in that the people we've been dealing with are pretty tech savvy. I think a lot of the product we build is technically focused, so those people and the customers have tended to be that way anyway. So no, not a lot of struggle that way.
Thanks so much, Dan. I'm going to give you the first crack at the next question. Now, you do a product that is often in an established area or a custom piece. How have you managed with kind of the separate from your purchasers, the public perception of what's going on in your sites? Shamir talked a little bit about that as well, and I think you did too. Just maybe give us a little sense as to some of the details that you focused in on in terms of making sure the neighbors to your work are comfortable with what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's always a major focus on our sites anyways. Prior to this, we have a process where we deliver letters to all of the immediate neighbors with information on what we're doing, our information, our contact for them. So really, it's a matter of just having them contact us before anybody else, you know, the city, the owners, anybody. And that gives us a chance to kind of educate them on things and what's going on. So in doing that, I mean, it's obviously given us a way to speak with those people, educate them a bit before there may be any issues, and we're always available for them. So it's just kind of an ongoing thing for the project. We get to know the neighbors fairly well, so yeah, keeping open communication is key. If people feel like they can approach you and ask you things, then you know that usually heads off most issues that you may encounter.
Thanks, Dan. Barry, anything to add on that front? How are you
No,
keeping the neighbors to your projects
I think I would.
happy?
Sorry, I would just agree with Dan that the biggest thing is just being transparent, being open to communication, making sure the customers know that you're there and the purpose you're there for, and that you're approachable.
Good. I've got just two more questions here that I'll go by the group. All of you talked about scheduling and coordination, whether it be with prospective excuse me, buyers or with trades. Are there any specific tools you're using to help keep everyone on the same page and coordinated in terms of that scheduling? Maybe Shamir, I'll toss that to you first to respond to.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Actually, we have gone back to the basics for our scheduling. We tried multiple softwares, never really worked well for us, never really enjoyed them. So we've gone basically back to an Excel spreadsheet that has everything in there that gets auto-populated. With that being said, it makes it really easy to adapt and change things with, with just a change of one date or whichever way there. Key behind it is just making sure, and we're being more diligent right now, of course, to make sure people are not stepping on top of each other. Because we'd have days where we would have a finisher working there and send someone for a template, and they'd all be within the 2 meters of each other, but it's only for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Now that 10, 15 minutes is not acceptable, and a lot of the guys, of course, will not feel safe on that. And one of the biggest things that we've really, really pushed is making sure our guys feel safe on site. I know we're all having some issues with laboring right now. My drywaller is having a big issue right now with a lot of people not showing up because, they're sitting home and getting paid. So making sure people feel safe is a very, very key aspect in our scheduling.
Thanks, Shamir. Dan, can I hand that question off to you?
Yeah, as Shamir said, we've kind of struggled with this. We do use an online system. We've gone through a few of them. And really what we're using now is kind of all encompassing. It helps schedule, it helps with the selections, budget tracking, everything for our clients, as well as the trades working on site. So that's what we found is the best and allows people to access that remotely, either from on site or clients from home, wherever it may be. So that's what we're using. And it's basically like Microsoft Project as far as the scheduling goes, and we just keep it updated, and that's key. I mean, you've got to have a good overview of what's going on, be able to plan 2-3 weeks ahead just to keep things running smoothly, and that's what we found to be the best tool for it.
Thanks very much, Dan. Barry, anything else to
add? I would agree with both Shamir and Dan that we definitely use scheduling software, and it's a cloud-based thing, so it's remote. Clients can log into it, trades can log into it, everyone can see, basically at a glance where we are with things, but it is managed. It has to be cultivated regularly, so it's not false information. One of the biggest things, though, is communication, and communication with the homeowners that, with this type of investment, especially with the environment that we're living in, the last thing we want to do as a company is rush. I believe rushing is just a recipe for a train wreck. It gets expensive and it gets very confusing and frustrating for everyone. So one thing that we definitely try to communicate, especially now with every job that we're dealing with, is we cannot rush. The ability once upon a time to stack trades in where social distancing wasn't required, it's not there now. We're all aware of that. And I think that customers have been very receptive to that theory as well, that, well, we don't want to put anybody's life at risk. We don't want to put, you know, anybody's family at risk. Why would we rush? It just makes perfect sense. So I think that's the biggest thing for us, is the communication that, you know, because of the situation we're in, we need to be very diligent with our scheduling and make sure, as Shamir said, we're not stacking trades, you know, and going into a situation where we're contravening that social distancing space.
Thanks very much for that, Barry. We're kind of at time here now, and I see a few of our attendees have had to make their way to their work days. So I think at that stage, since we don't have any more questions in the chat room, we should probably wind things up and let you get on with your respective days. I really want to especially thank our speakers, Shamir Gaydar, Dan Hill, and Barry Johnson. You really epitomize the spirit that has come out in dealing with the COVID-19 public health emergency, is that as much as you are competitors, you realize that it's important that the industry be supported and good ideas be shared so we can all find our way through and have a great reputation for safety during this piece. So congratulations to all of you for putting yourselves out there and sharing your ideas this morning. It is really important that we do not underestimate the importance of implementing COVID-19 safe work sites and tracking these measures and demonstrating the diligence of them. It is a real privilege that we have been given to be designated an essential business. So we're grateful for that as an industry, and we're also grateful for the industry participants for demonstrating such commitment to safety. So thank you very much all for that. As you probably heard shortly after the meeting started, it was recorded. Unfortunately, that was my epic fail this morning. I'm supposed to press the start button, and I failed to do that, but thanks to Lauren Herschel, who pressed that button. And because of that, a recording of this will be posted on Bill's website later today, along with all of the other COVID-19 resources available for everyone. And you can access our website at bildcr.com and follow your way through the clicks in the COVID section. And thanks to the Build team for coordinating this morning and doing such a great job. And thanks to all of you for joining us and your commitment to our great industry. I hope you have a great and safe day and look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you very much.